are ready whenever you are.
Are we live?
Yep.
Turn the mics on. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order. It's September 30th, 2020. It is 5 o'clock. It's not a work session. This is a board meeting. Let's all stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call?
Mr. Dosen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer? Yes. Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes. Item 2, work session. We have A, our survey data review. B, return to instruction, 5 days a week discussion. And C, Thanksgiving break method of instruction discussion. Let's start with our survey data review. So just to recap, last Wednesday, we had a board meeting where Superintendent Magyar presented to the board the concept of possibly returning to 5 days a week because of she felt the educational impact was pretty great that it needed to be brought to the board's attention. The board then charged Mrs. Magyar with creating a survey for parents, and that's where we are today. That survey closed on Sunday, is that correct? Sunday night?
Monday night.
Monday. And so that it was released on Friday. It was sent out in a board email, in a superintendent update email, and we had quite a bit of respondents, and we're going to show you that today, and thank you for turning in.
Just a comment for everybody that's watching at home. You won't be able to see it here because you're just seeing kind of this full boardroom, but the survey results are posted in board docs under agenda item 2A, which is what we're looking at now. So if you want to see the survey results for yourself at home, go to our meeting agenda in board docs and go to item 2A, and you'll pull up the PDF which has the survey results.
Now, board docs can be found on the school website under the board drop down.
So I can't scroll it. I don't know. I had Paul, he said it was tested and I can't get it. It's like there's a lag, so it's just really slow to move, which I just talked to Paul today and there we go. Okay, sorry.
So I'm asking that you go review what the results show.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we had over 2,400 responses to our survey. As you can see, we broke it down by, where your child was enrolled, and we asked all of our families to fill out a survey for each child. What we learned in the late spring, was that depending on the age of the children, some people would answer the survey differently based on the questions we were asking. So we wanted to give that same respect this time to families, that you may have a different answer depending on how old your child is. So then of those responses, we asked if you were currently in-person participating in our hybrid model, or if you were an online learner, to understand who participated in our survey. And so close to 90% of the people who participated in the survey were the ones that are hybrid, and 10% of our families that are participating in online answered our survey. And the question that we asked of our families was that if we return to, considering returning on Monday, October 26, 2020 to 5-day in-person, what would your feeling be, or what would your preference be? And so of the people that responded to the survey, we had 58% of our families say that they would like to move to 5-day in-person instruction on October 26th. 32% said that we should stay in the hybrid model through Thanksgiving break. We had a percentage, and we could do quick math on that, about 10%, right? 10% of our families that said that they're an online learner, And then we had an option of saying, you know, if you're an online learner, would you like to switch to a 5-day in-person learning model? So we had some of our families answer that as well, that we have some families that would definitely be interested in doing that. Through some emails that we've received, we've also heard from some hybrid families that have said, you know, I'm comfortable sending my child 2 days a week. I don't know if I'd be comfortable sending 5 days a week. So at that point, I would like to switch to a remote option. So, you know, having some flexibility there, and we can talk through how we will handle all of that in a minute. Next question. We went, and so currently in our calendar, as many of you know, we had implemented a mandatory remote period between Thanksgiving break and the holiday break. And this was twofold. This was to be proactive in an attempt to not only keep spread of the COVID virus, but also knowing that that is really prime time for flu season. And if the thought was, if we could stay remote during those 3 weeks and have a 5-week period of time between that and Thanksgiving and the holiday break, where we can minimize exposure of all of our staff and students, that would be ideal to be proactive in that standpoint of not spreading COVID or the flu, and to be able to deep clean our buildings, deep clean to the point of how we do that over the summer and allow that time to happen, to allow that cleaning to happen between that break. And so we asked the question if families wanted to keep that remote period in the current calendar. 38% said yes, keep that all remote period, so that, you know, to be proactive in that nature. 61.5% of our families said no, we want to continue with the learning model that the district is in prior to the break. So if a decision is made to go back on the 26th to be 5 days, that they want to continue in those 5 days. If the decision is to stay hybrid, then we continue in the hybrid for those for that 3-week period. And the last question. Again, just if the district returned to 5-day, does that change our transportation at all? And so currently we're transporting about 42% of our kids. That number jumped up based on the survey responses to about 55% said that they would utilize our transportation should we go back the 5 days a week. 28% of our families said no, they would stay driving. They would drive their child to school. Some of our students, as you know, at the high school, they drive themselves to school, so they will continue to drive themselves to school. And for 7% or of the 7.5% of parents who responded to the survey, they are an online learner and would not need our transportation.
That's it.
So I guess just a comment on that last question. It is interesting, if we do go back 5 days, you have only about half of our families are saying we need transportation. So a lot of people had concerns about, is there enough social distancing on our bus? But if these numbers hold true, you're only talking 55% of our students that would be on the bus. So, you know, we'd kind of be like with the hybrid model where we only have half on, you know, possibly on. So that's good to see, at least for that piece of it, that the transportation, there'd be an opportunity to distance more because less families would use our transportation.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 2, which is the discussion of a return to instruction 5 days a week.
Well, I'm willing to kind of kick us off and get started. We have, I think from a board standpoint, we've collected the information that we need, hopefully, to make a decision. We've gotten our survey results back. We had Joelle's presentation last week on the rationale to go back. And so I guess now it's time to kind of weigh in. Bear with me because I decided to write out my thoughts because I had a number of things I wanted to touch on, and I don't want to miss anything. After this meeting, I will post my written comments in board docs for reference and transparency. So if anybody misses anything I say, I'll put it out there so that you can check it for yourself. I want to start by thanking all of our families for taking the time and effort to respond to our survey and for sending us your personal emails sharing your thoughts, concerns, questions, and feedback. Collectively, this represents the voice of our community, and it provided the board with a comprehensive view of our families' opinions and experiences. Not surprisingly, there were very strong and passionate feelings for both retaining hybrid as well as switching to 5-day in-person. Despite where we land as a board tonight, our decision will be greeted with satisfaction and joy by some, and disappointment and anger by others. Personally, I have felt the weight of this decision since it was brought to us last week. Please know that your board has made their best effort to consider a wide range of opinions and inputs in order to provide a direction that we believe will be in the best interest of our district. On August 3rd, this board discussed whether to follow the guidance of the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, which recommended all districts within the county begin the year remotely. Based on numerous factors, including the low spread rate within our community, we boldly decided to be one of the few districts to return our students to in-person learning, albeit via a hybrid model. I expressed concerns about this newly conceived hybrid model and preferred instead a return to a full 5-day model right from the start. Ultimately, the board chose the hybrid model. I want to thank our superintendent for having the courage to bring us her recommendation so quickly into the start of our school year. Her observations that the hybrid model is falling far short of expectations, especially for some of our youngest learners, led her to act quickly in proposing a change. We stated from the beginning that COVID is a fluid situation and that change could come quickly as circumstances unfold. When completing this survey, our parents were able to draw on more data than they had a few months ago. Our county has been in level 2 orange for 6 straight weeks. High school sports, band, and extracurriculars have returned with minimal COVID impact, and parents had the opportunity to see firsthand what our hybrid model is like. From our survey, if you filter out those who responded, "I am an online learner," here's the revised breakdown. 34% responded, "Stay in the hybrid model through Thanksgiving break." 62% responded, "Move to 5-day in-person instruction on October 26th. 4% responded, "I am currently an online learner but would like to switch to 5-day in-person learning." This means 66% want to move to a 5-day model compared to 34% who want to remain in the hybrid model. This represents a significant 32-point spread. It is clear a vast majority of our parents are aligned with our superintendent's recommendation to end the hybrid experiment and return to a conventional 5-day in-person model. I realize that such a change in the middle of the semester would be highly disruptive for students, families, and staff. Those hybrid students who are uncomfortable with the 5-day model and would need to switch to online would lose out in in-person experiences 2 days a week. Families who made arrangements to accommodate the hybrid schedule would once again need to adjust. While I am troubled by the negative consequences from making a switch, we also cannot stick with an educational model that is clearly not working for most of our families. Therefore, just as I expressed last August, I support the return to a 5-day model. Shifting to a 5-day model will afford us an opportunity to settle in now and improve the delivery of both online and in-person education this semester. It will position us well for next semester, as parents will have a much better grasp on the pros and cons of 5-day versus online. In closing, this is a COVID year, and it sucks. Education has suffered and will continue to suffer while COVID is with us. However, we need to learn to live with this virus and adapt. It is time to join the many schools across the country who are making the 5-day model work. Thank you for all of your patience as we figure out the best path forward for the Brecksville-Broadview Heights School District.
Thank you, Mr. Dozen. I'm going to piggyback on your statement, and I also wrote my thoughts down, and I'm going to submit that for the record. COVID restrictions have created difficulty throughout the landscape of education. Back in August, the district was faced with a choice to enter into a full 5-day return, choose a hybrid return, or stay remote. On the county coronavirus heat map, the district was still in the red zone. In August, I felt that it was essential to look at 2 components: the virus data for Brecksville Broadview Heights and the educational and psychological impact of not returning to school. Based on that criteria, I chose a 5-day return. Our cities had a low incidence of coronavirus cases, and the educational and psychological impact was beginning to compound to an uncomfortable level. At that time, I stated that it was necessary to give parents, teachers, and students a choice: return for 5 days and provide a robust online platform. Unfortunately, the majority of this board did not agree, only Mr. Dozen. So now, in late September, the board is presented with a recommendation from our superintendent to go to what I believed was the best course in August: a 5-day model or an online model. The majority of the parents agree that the educational, psychological impact has been too significant for some students. For those parents online, I am hopeful that the majority of this board recognizes that the creation of this midway model, the hybrid, is hurting your choice. Everybody is losing. There cannot be equity in education without delivering an all-in or all-out model. Our educators in this district have worked hard to adjust to a hybrid model that, in my opinion, is not sustainable. The longer this model continues, the more it compounds. The missing assignments continue to pile up for some students, which I am recognizing during my day job, and the educational gap continues to grow. I hope the rest of this board, which are not the academic experts, allow our superintendent's recommendations and the majority of our parents to hold weight in their decision-making. Permitting your own fears and your own biases to get in the way is not fair to all the people who elected you to represent them. Thank you.
In August, all 5 of us voted 5-0 to go on the hybrid model. And the reason we did that, and that was the hybrid model, whether it was red, orange, or yellow, in our county's Board of Health color scheme. The reason we did that, and it was emphasized over and over again, was for consistency. So our administration could have a consistent program, our parents could make the changes and adjustments they needed to make in order to have a consistent program, and our kids would have a consistent program through the Thanksgiving holiday. I voted for hybrid for that reason, and also, more importantly to me, for the safety of our children. And we made a commitment then, and I'm going to continue that commitment. I'm not going to rescind my commitment. I vote to stay on hybrid.
At this point in time, I'm going to recommend that we continue to stay in hybrid. Like Fred, we did have a conversation back in August about honoring the County Board of Health or the State Board of Health's color coding system. A few days later, we committed as a board, as Fred said, 5-0, to remaining in hybrid through the rest of the calendar year. At this point, we don't have a lot of information about what this does to our students. This isn't out of fear, this is out of a lack of data. There are studies, there are not a lot of studies. So with that, I can't recommend that. In an attempt to continue to partner with our teachers, I think it's responsible to stay in hybrid because of their fears and their needs in order to teach in a safe environment, for our students to learn in a safe environment. Parents came to this district with the expectation of a quality education, and I believe that with our commitment, we can continue to build on that. Living in this community is a privilege. Teaching in this community is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. Billie Jean King said that. And diamonds are made from pressure. And so I think that we can handle it. We made a commitment to staying in hybrid, and I think that's the responsible thing to do. It was the premise that we set out to give both parents and teachers expectations to move forward and plan for the remainder of the calendar year. That being said, I am open to having a discussion that I'm sure we'll be moving to next about whether we remain in hybrid or go all remote between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Ellen? Ellen? Mrs. Kramer, sorry.
That's okay. So with all due respect to the educational experts in the room, nobody has mentioned the fact that there is an infectious disease part of this that none of us are experts on. So while I truly value the opinion of the educational experts when it comes to education, I think it's pretty safe to say we don't have an infectious disease specialist on the board, which would be great, but we don't. So I thoroughly listened to Joelle's presentation last week. I have reviewed all of the many, many emails that have come in, other than perhaps some that came in this afternoon. The survey, what other schools are doing, news from a variety of sources for the past week. This issue is really challenging, and there isn't a right or wrong position on it. I can tell you that I think recommendations from infectious disease specialists with the coming cold weather are such that all of us are about to engage in an experiment that no school district has engaged in so far. Nobody's had their students in school full-time during the typical cold and flu season. I am willing to send our students back to school 5 days a week because I truly believe, weighing all the options, it's better for them. I do find it too risky to permit that 5-day-a-week option to continue between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I can only in good conscience agree to 5 days if we take some time off later this year to allow for some time away from the buildings and to prevent our numbers from the COVID numbers from getting bad again. But I am now okay with the 5-day-a-week option starting October 26th. I do want to apologize for everyone, especially the teachers who have been negatively affected by all of this flip-flopping. I'm also sorry for how, this is going to affect families who will want to switch from the hybrid to a remote option, because I know that's going to be very challenging. I also hope that people continue to be careful, wash their hands, wear face coverings so that we can have a normal second semester. But at this point, I'm going to accept Joelle's recommendation to go back 5 days starting October 26th.
Okay. The majority of the board has spoken. Item C, Thanksgiving break, method of instruction discussion. So does anyone want to tee that up?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll kind of start again, because I did a little bit of parsing on the survey data, and I guess just to be clear, the way the numbers break down is for those who are basically going to be in person, 67% wanted to continue the learning model after the break. So again, if you filter out those who are online learners and want to remain online learners, their voice in what we do after Thanksgiving is not really relevant because they're already home. So we're just talking about the families who are either in or plan to be in. So 67% said they want to continue with the learning model after the break, and 33% said they wanted to stay remote. So really very consistent with the last question, which is, a very significant spread. Again, this spread was 34% spread that said the vast majority of our parents, and we've seen some of that reflected in the emails we've received, that their kids have been out of school long enough. They were out of school all last spring. They, hybrid, this so far with only 2 days a week, and that they didn't want them to be back in school and then back on the sidelines remote. I think all of our parents are well aware that we're in the flu season. The question was teed up saying that this was done for deep cleaning and because of the flu season. And despite that, their view was it's better to have them back. And there is no safe option with our decisions. You can try to be safe from COVID, but then you get the downside of what are the downsides to remote, which have a lot of social, emotional, and mental health concerns. So I'm in the same place I was on the last question, which is trust our parents. They want to go back. I say we go back. We go back. They've missed enough school as it is, and we go back.
So I too, I would like to see our students stay back. As long as the heat map says that that's okay. I want to avoid any more flip-flopping. I just had this conversation with another colleague today. It's very difficult when we are shifting back and forth. The kids are confused. I don't want to create any more confusion. And I had tried in August to avoid the hybrid, even though I did vote 5-0, because at least the students were in front of teachers. So I would have started us that way if I could. But now, given this opportunity to get our students back and our teachers this ability to have this fluid educational model, I'd like to keep it that way after Thanksgiving as well, as long as, the heat map supports that.
Meaning, just to clarify, obviously, I think we're all operating under the same assumption that if we were to go really poorly and into purple,
Right.
we needed to go remote. But the other 3 levels, we'd stay with the model.
Correct.
And let me also just maybe refresh everybody, because a lot of people might be watching. Fred mentioned earlier about a 5-0 vote to go hybrid. Let me just refresh everybody, because there were a couple of meetings, and just so people aren't confused. When we first met last August, it was August 3rd, what was in front of the board was, are we going to follow the County Board of Health recommendation to go remote? And what we said was, no, we're not going to go remote. We're going to go according to our plan. And at the time, our plan said, in red, in level 3 on the heat map red, we would go hybrid. And if we were yellow or orange, we would go 5-day all in. So we made that decision on August 3rd, saying we're not going to follow the Board of Health recommendation because our spread rate was very low. Let's go with our plan. Then it became obvious to us that we could potentially bounce between orange and red all throughout the first semester and bounce between hybrid and all in, hybrid and all in. So we met a second time a week later where we unanimously agreed that let's just stay with the hybrid plan for the 10 weeks that take us to Thanksgiving. So that's just a refresh of where we're at. But over all of that, I'll just remind everybody, we have been consistent from day one with this pandemic that things could change, that the plan is the plan until circumstances might have us alter the plan. So, because some people said, you promised to stay for the whole thing. There weren't promises made. We say, this is what we think today, but everything is subject to change. Even what we're talking about today is subject to change, but hopefully we don't, and we have success. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of frame that in for people that may be watching and try to remember what happened. So the original decision was a 3-2 decision to say go hybrid. Kathleen and I wanted to go 5-day. The rest of the board wanted to go hybrid. That's how we started. Then we revisited it and say, let's just stay hybrid and not bounce between the heat map if it changes. That's what we did. And now we're coming back this time where we've decided we're going to go back 5 days all in, and we're going to get rid of the hybrid model. And now we have 2 people who say, let's follow the parents' survey results and go back after Thanksgiving with our 5-day model.
Yep.
Sorry, just wanted to
Fred,
kind of frame
Fred,
that in.
Sorry.
Again, for the sake of consistency, I would be willing at this time to continue the 5-day model through the Thanksgiving to the new year. We still have a month and a half. As Mark mentioned, it's a very fluid situation. If we see the flu season kick in, and if we see a rise or whatever, we have alternatives that we can discuss down the road. But again, I want to be consistent, so let's stay with the 5-day plan through the holiday season.
Brittany, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So to be clear, we're now functioning under the premise that if in yellow, orange, and red, we will remain in a 5-day model, is that right? Is that the thought process?
That's my understanding, but keeping in mind that at any point, and Fred just touched on it, we could, if circumstances are exploding here, we could reconvene and say, let's change, right? But the going-in position would be that we would stay in this model unless circumstances would cause us to revisit the decision.
Okay. Yeah, for consistency, again, for consistency purposes, for planning, for childcare, for teacher lesson planning, I think that's advisable. Mrs. Magyar, can you remind me, what is the, does the district typically close buildings for absentee rates?
Typically, it's about 20%. And we have not had to do that since I've been here, so.
Okay. Is there any plan to potentially evaluate that threshold?
Not at this time, but again, when you look at sickness versus COVID,
Right.
how the county defines a COVID outbreak is way different than how we would define closing a building just due to a flu outbreak. So we'd have to look at that for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Kramer?
Just simply what I said before, we're much more likely to have a normal second semester. I absolutely agree with the consistency comments, but I think going back 5 days a week, starting October 26th through the end of the year makes it less likely that we're going to have a normal second semester like I'm sure everybody is hoping for. I realize there's a lack of consistency, but I mean, that's pretty much what the year 2020 has been. And if we want to have a good 2021, I think we need to go into this 5-day-a-week thing very carefully. And going back into 5 days a week, starting October 26th and doing that for 7 straight weeks, I have serious concerns with. But hopefully, my concerns will not be realized.
I think too, it's something to consider here is that, we do have, based on the survey data, a large number of parents that want to be back in the buildings 5 days a week. I think what comes with that is the responsibility to ensure that they themselves are conducting themselves appropriately. They are, abstaining from risky, unsocially distanced behavior on the weekends. They continue to wear masks, they wash their hands, that sort of thing. I think, to the credit of a lot of our electives and extracurricular activities to start the year, I think they've done a really good job of displaying that they can be smart and responsible when it comes to this. I put that onus back on parents and teachers as well to continue to conduct themselves accordingly to ensure that we don't have to do this flip-flopping.
All right.
I would just like to thank the board for your support of my recommendation. I really do feel that this is in the best interest of our kids in terms of their education. As put in a leadership position as you all are, as I am, sometimes you got to make some hard decisions, and sometimes you just got to say, you know what, this isn't working. And be humble enough to say that. And for the sake of our kids' mental health, for the sake of our kids socially, for the sake of their education, I I can't get out of my head our little kindergartners whose first experience with school is this. This isn't how it should be. This is not going to build those skills that those kids need to be successful later on in life. We need to see our children. And so I'm passionate about our kids. I'm passionate about what we do. I know this decision is not going to be popular with many, but my job is to think about the children, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to put the children first here. We will keep them safe. Our protocols are working. We have 4 weeks of data to show that our protocols are working, and we're confident that we can meet both their needs that they have in terms of safety and now meet their educational needs the way that this district and our parents expect us to meet their needs educationally as well. So I thank you for that.
I don't know if this is the time or not, but you mentioned I think it was the same email that you sent out talking about 5D, that you have more PPE coming, you have more transparent shields, whatever the heck they are. Can you briefly get into that a little bit more? I mean, I'd be interested to know how we're going to go about separating these kids with the classroom sizes that we're going to have.
Sure. So, again, we're going to have an open enrollment period, so families who might be online now that want to come back 5 days will have that option, where we did ask families to commit for a semester. But since we're changing our model, we need to allow parents that same courtesy to change what they want to do. And just as I said before, we've also had parents who say that if they were comfortable with 2 days but would not be comfortable with 5 and would like to change. So our numbers are going to be a little bit fluid. So we don't know yet how much the class is going to increase in size, because it might be a net. We might have people online that come back, and we might have people who are in hybrid now that go online. So it could be a zero net increase as to what we're seeing right now. But putting those kids in classes, we've done a couple things. We've taken furniture and carpet out of many of the classrooms at the elementary school, all of the classrooms at the elementary school actually, that allow us to push desks farther apart that we didn't do before, because we wanted to maintain a carpet for circle time. We had small group tables where kids, by removing those, you can push your desks farther apart to maintain social distancing. In addition, that still does not affect that we have to be wearing masks all the time when we're in the buildings. And what we've done is we've purchased, they're kind of a tri-fold plastic barriers for kids to have on top of their desk. In some situations where we have tables, those will be mounted to the tables, so the kids will be separated by plastic barriers. In the high school and at the middle school, we've ordered one each for every specific student, that they can take it with them. So as they transfer to classes, they can set it up on their desks. So we've purchased all of those. It was quite an expense, but we knew that we needed to do that to maintain and keep our kids as safe as possible if we were going to bring them all back.
I guess I'll just add on too, I guess, for all of our families at home. So, to clarify too, there's going to be another kind of open enrollment period or where everybody's going to get a chance to repick what educational model they want. So those who are in the online program today, even though you made a commitment for the whole semester, since we're offering now a 5-day model, that option to switch into the 5-day model will be available, as well as those who are in the hybrid model can switch into the online model. So, everybody is going to have an opportunity to pick the model that they feel most comfortable with. And, some people are just not going to be comfortable with going back 5-day, and that's okay. That's why we want to be able to offer choice, and you'll have the online option available. And so, as we see those numbers start to come in, we're more than likely going to have an increase in our online numbers, because people that are in the hybrid now that aren't comfortable will switch into the online, and that's fine. Keep in mind, those that decide to go 5-day, as the numbers increase online, that creates less students in the building. So, we've already gotten some questions about, well, how are you going to distance, and how are you going to do this? How are you going to have more airflow? What happens when it gets winter? I trust, most of our families have been in our buildings. You know what our buildings are like. You know what how many students we have in there. We're socially distancing to the extent possible. Some places it's going to be easier to do than others, but everybody should go into this with their eyes wide open, that we're not going to now institute massive new changes to handle 5-day. We're keeping the same protocols we have today. We're going to do the best we can, PPE, distancing, all of that stuff. And you play a part in it too. Our parents, encouraging your kids to keep their masks on, wash their hands regularly, all those things. So if everybody gets on board, and everybody's done a great job so far, the hope is that we can have success and settle into, 2 models that we can get better at each day.
And I would just add that the online model too is, we've had some conversation about what our online model looks like now at the elementary school. Our online model, again, this is about equity. So our online model will be a 5-day model, just like our in-person model will be a 5-day model. We understand that there may be some additional staffing needs should our numbers increase online. We're prepared for that. So we just, there's still, again, some planning. So we've thought about a lot, but really could not implement anything until, we had this conversation to figure out how to proceed. But we're ready to go, and we'll get stuff out to parents as quickly as we can here in the next week to start, solidifying some of those plans. But I just wanted to reiterate that our online plan will be equitable. It'll be 5 days of instruction, just as our kids who come 5 days will be as well.
Joelle or Craig, can you remind me, and if you don't have these numbers offhand, that's fine, how many students left the district in search of 5-day education?
About 200 kids withdraw from the district. We're down, we just had new enrollment numbers last week. It was 3599. We're at 3588. So we had 11 more kids leave. And so when we had this conversation last week, we had some parents already reach out to some of our principals to say if it is a decision to go back the 5 days, that they would come back. So we've already heard from some of those parents who have withdrawn, because that was the sole reason they did withdraw from our school. It wasn't because of our programming or our ability to educate their kids. It was really that they wanted that 5-day-a-week model, and so that's why they left.
Thank you.
And I can say that this decision has also prevented more families from leaving, because I know if we didn't choose this route, that people felt like their children couldn't stay in this hybrid model. So it's a good thing. Thank you to the public for reaching out. I am going to ask that people recognize this was a difficult decision for everybody. We've tried our best, and I've heard from more than 100 of you that you don't want to be any of us. So I get that. And with that said, please, understand our job is to give you choice. And I believe that we tried every time we made a decision to give you choice. And today this was, you have a choice. And so if you don't like how things turned out, you have a choice. And that's what's most important, at least to me. And when you write the board, consider being kind. And we laugh, because some of the things that some of us have seen, if you showed your children what you wrote us, I don't know if you would be okay with that. So the educator in me is going to say to everybody, please be kind with your words, because they do wound. And we are all trying our best in something that nobody gave us a script for. So thank you.
I'll just add another comment on there. What we did tonight as a board is extremely reflective of our community. We were divided 3 to 2 to go back to 5-day. That's kind of where our community is. Our parents were about 3 to 2, let's go back. So as Ellen said, there's not a right or a wrong answer. It's like you're just trying to take all the information you have and make the best call you can. So, I would suggest that this process and your representation, the 5 of us who have been voted on the board, are an accurate reflection of our community, which is we're not all unified. Everybody's got a different opinion. So, you respect the will of the majority and the decisions that are being made, and do your best to pick the choice that's best for your family, and do your best to keep the spread low in our community so we can get to the other side of this quicker.
Item 3, announcement of meetings. We have A, regular board meeting, October 28th, 2020. Closing items. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dose?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes, we are now adjourned. Please tune in at 6 o'clock for the town hall meeting to learn more about our educational platforms. Thank you.